Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Football-Oranje podcast 17. We're back for the new season. I'm here with James Rowe, Chaka Simbeye, and Michael Bell. I'm Michael Statham. We're going to be talking about the unfortunate news of Nouri, the upcoming European games involving Ajax, Utrecht. We're going to discuss the Eredivisie title race, our early thoughts on PSV finals and other contenders, and also a nod to the Netherlands women's team that are competing at the moment in Euro 2017. We hope you enjoy this. We're available on YouTube, SoundCloud and iTunes with what we hope is clearer sound for you as well. And of course, we hope you enjoy this podcast enough to like and subscribe to us on our various platforms. The main news that's happened is the really unfortunate news about Nouri. Guys, do any of you want to speak up for Appy and I guess give a little testament to him?
Yeah, I'm going to speak up first and then I'm going to throw it to James. It's something that's hard to explain and difficult for him and his family. In the match, it was just so sudden. 1 minute he was there playing and the next he was down, and it looked like a cramp at the beginning, but it ended up being something more serious. And he was obviously highly rated within the academy, with the way the football community backed him. And one of the biggest tweets that I saw about him was from Rowe, who said that when he coached him with the Ajax Academy, he was always the first player out on the training pitch. He was so inquisitive, and he just had this hunger to learn about football and play football. He was on the brink of making of having a breakout season this season, and just the way that Amsterdam community showed up from outside of his house, those pictures grasped the world so emotionally, because it was this guy that was obviously a large part of the culture and the community and was going to be a big player for Ajax. And fans, fans went outside of his house. There's even a video on Ajax's YouTube of this boy, handing his mother a signed shirt as she cries, and his father is weeping. His brother tries to come out of the window to thank everyone, but he's too emotional to really do anything. And James, obviously living over in the Netherlands, would know how closely knit the Amsterdam community is with the club and the academy for that to happen.
Considering Nouri's age and the talent he had, there was absolutely no doubt that he would have gone on to have a fine career. I posted on my Twitter feed today a video that was made profiling his highlights from last season, where he was crowned Player of the Year. And when you see some of his passes and when you see the weight of some of those passes and the accuracy, for someone who was only 20, it was quite phenomenal. As Chaka rightly points out, Amsterdam is also shocked by what happened. The fans, who are very passionate about all facets of the club, and when such a thing happens to one of their own, as they call it, they want to show sympathy towards the family. They want to show their respect, and they took the gesture to go to the area where the family lives, to pay their respects and to show the family how much they respected Nouri as a young talent, as a young player. It's going to be a long road now. What you see that the squad has stated that they do have an upcoming match against Nice in the Champions League qualifier, but that seems completely unimportant in relation to what's happened, and then rightly so. The health of a player is always the most important thing. It's sad news, of course, and it's a long road ahead for Nouri in many ways, but in the short time that he was an Ajax player, especially last season in the Europa League, he made such a positive impression that I don't think that I don't think he'll be forgotten anytime soon.
Yeah, just an overwhelming feeling of shock. It was like 6 days ago that the news basically got announced that it was permanent brain damage, and I think everyone just around was just numb after reading that. And my tributes, it's not just in Amsterdam. Really, I think the footballing world's come together, especially in the Netherlands, and to see, Feyenoord fans sending tributes. There's a club that they hate, but you see this young player. That's what's happened, and they're all coming together. PSV players, you see their squad players, because half these people know, nearly from the Netherlands under 21s camps, like Bergwijn at PSV's one of his best friends, Jari Sherman at Feyenoord. These guys grew up for the Netherlands squad, and it's really touching to see all the tributes, and it's heartbreaking footage. His family getting surrounded and his dad coming out of the car. It's really hard to watch, and it's going to be a difficult game to watch as well. The first home game at the Johan Cruyff Stadium, and I think it's going to be a very emotional night for everyone involved at the club. I think it's going to be a very emotional season as well. I can see it being one long tribute. The whole season is going to be based on Nouri, and I think I hope the fans come together and keep his memory going out, support his family, and just lend support throughout the season. I hope the Ajax and Feyenoord fans and PSV fans all come together and help out in any way that they can. As a website, we've been following Nouri since I saw him really at the under-17 Euros when everyone's reached the final before getting beat by England. He was a special talent then. When he was only 15, 16, he was destined for greatness. This was going to be possibly his breakout year into the first team. He's been tipped for Netherlands going forward. It's just a massive shock.
It certainly puts things to perspective. I remember when I was a bit younger, and as an Aston Villa fan, Stilian Petrov suffered with leukemia, and it affected so many fans, writers, journalists, and everyone alike. It was just big news, and it sounded like that at the time that Stilian wasn't going to recover, much like Appy, but fortunately Stilian gone to recover, and he's well now. But it certainly does put things to perspective for the club and the players. And how can they turn this? Can they turn it into something positive for when they look ahead to the game against Nice? Can they use this energy?
You could see the photos and the images, and even after after it all happened, Ajax had to cancel the next few preseason games, and the photos coming out of the Ajax Twitter page and the Ajax website, the whole squad looked glum. The heads were down, shoulders shrugged, and of course it will be that way because Nouri was a massive part of that dressing room, and everybody that was there loved him a lot. And someone like Van der Beek, who's meant to go on to have a good season, that was his best friend, and they had been together for a long time. So it's hard for footballers to emotionally process things because they are people too, especially in a year where we've seen the Borussia Dortmund thing happen too. So it's all about how they process this the next few weeks, and but it's not going to be simple for them because it's a very young squad, and the likes of De Ligt and Kluivert probably looked up to him and were having dinner with him a few days before it happened, and the De Jongs and Van der Beeks were close with him, and it's just heart-wrenching as they would understand, to have such a young talent described as the most gifted talent of the Ajax Academy robbed of his career very cruelly, and it's hit them hard emotionally. And Marcel Kaiser also coached him last year, and he would also be feeling bad because he coached Nouri through a great season last year, and he would feel closer to him than any other manager. So it's gonna be a real talking point to see how they sort of develop and sort of get through this.
I think the whole Ajax Stadium, when they do play in front of the Rowe Stadium, is how the players are going to deal with the emotions of that night. The ZX, he was very close to Nouri since and he treated him like a brother. So I mean, how are these players going to react when they step onto the pitch and the fans are just going to be totally chanting Nouri's name probably for the whole 90 minutes, and it's going to be an emotional night, and it's how the experienced players get them through that, how the Hunters, the Schuerners, the Veltmans, try and get the players focused on a night that nobody wants at the moment. Nobody wants the season to start next week. People want still to get over the grief and of what's happened to Nouri, but this is such an important match for Ajax this season that couldn't probably come at a worse time.
Yeah, it is certainly important. And in an opponent like Nice, it's gonna be tough. Out of the opponents they could have drawn, the French side probably one of the strongest they could have pulled out. And if they can beat Nice over 2 legs, they will face one more qualifier before a Champions League group stage. What do you guys think for Ajax's hopes of reaching the Europa League group stage or the Champions League group stage?
I will be at the second leg at home to Nice, and as you rightly say, it will be a difficult night. Will be a night where it won't feel like a qualifier. It will feel like a tribute to a young player, as Chaka rightly pointed out, who's robbed of his career and his wonderful talents. I think Nice is going to be very, very difficult indeed. Not just because they finished third in the French league last season. They brought Christophe Chalet from Lyon, who's an extremely dependable defender. It was the toughest draw they could have got, but you would hope they would be able to make, I was going to say, use of home advantage, but I don't feel that the match and the spectacle is going to feel like a game where it's going to be high tempoed and end to end. It's going to feel like the Ajax supporters will rightly feel that they want to honour that young player and make their voices heard, and the football will maybe come after that. But I think it's going to be very difficult over 2 legs. Naturally, I hope that Ajax do well living in the city, but I just think at the minute, and especially with the experience of Lucien Favre, not that Marcel Kaiser doesn't have experience, because he does, but I think with Lucien Favre as well, and his time at Mönchengladbach, I can see Nice pushing on just that little bit more, and I think that over 2 legs, Nice may well go through.
Yeah, as James rightly pointed out, Lucien Favre, he's a manager that was pinpointed for the Bayern Munich job as a replacement or successor to Pep Guardiola before, he had a bad season where he lost the first 5 games at Borussia Mönchengladbach and quit. He's turned Nice's fortunes around very quickly. He can play a system with 3 at the back. He's very tactically able, and they've also got a few good players that they've kept from last season, like Vincent Cazziello, Valentin Aesthetic, and they finished in the. It's no surprise that they are where they are after playing the way they did last year. They still have Michael Statham, who is one of the most sought out after players on the French market, and I think it will be a difficult game for Ajax, and the preparation hasn't been great for them, especially under a new manager who's and the players that they've lost are Klaassen and not having Bertrand Traore return for the season, and just having squad players stripped from them, like the Tetters and the Riedervelds. So it's going to be a difficult game for Ajax. I think the home leg is winnable for them. Dutch teams in Europe are always quite good at home. It's away that's always the problem, and I I just hope that they can do more in the home game than they did against Rostov last year.
Sorry, Chaka. Relating to what you're saying there about the Ajax and losing a few players, we had a question from Cam, and he says there's been an exodus at the club. So is there a cause for concern, or do they have more faith in the youth players that than we think?
I think this sort of exodus thing is being, it's being blown up into something that it really isn't. Of course, Klaasen's left and Tete and Riedervold have left, but Tete and Riedervold weren't main first team players. Riedervold lost his spot on the pecking order to De Ligt, who probably partner Davinson Sanchez in defense. I think if you would start really worrying if they lost Nick Verheven, who's getting interest from German sides. If they sold him on, it would be a worry because he's a massive player, especially in covering a centre back role and a left-sided left full-back role. And given the fact that they have no natural full-backs and Richard Haps has just been taken off the market by Feyenoord, it means they're going to have to start. If they lose Verheven, it puts them in a real bind, leaving, Deli Sinkgraven, who's been moved from midfield to fullback by Peter Bosz, and who isn't a natural fullback as the only left fullback. So I think this whole exodus thing is blown out of proportion because they've shedded players that weren't necessarily in the first team, that have had the spots taken by younger players who have done more to impress the coaching staff. They've still got Van der Beek, they've still got Frankie de Jong, they've still got Karel Eating, they've still got Casper Dolberg. Now they've got backup for him in Klaas-Jan Huntelaar. Justin Kluivert will make a step up. They've still got David Neres. If they lose Armin Younes, that would be a problem. But Kluivert can play both on the right and left, and it gives Vaclav Cherny a bit more room to step up on the right flank. And they've still got players in the academy like Zifrik, who James is a major fan of, to step up a right back behind Veltman, who they haven't lost, and who it's rumored that he will sign a new contract. The money, someone like Klaasen was expected to leave in this window, and to sell him for such a good fee to Everton was a massive coup, and it was great for all involved. So I'm not too worried about it yet, but if Verheven and Younes left, then it would be a massive problem for Ajax, and sort of them looking for the title and looking to do better in Europe this season.
Yeah, it's been exaggerated, hasn't it? There's the players that have gone, such as Klaasen. He was almost up for sale because they knew that they could make a profit from him, and if he stays longer, they're not going to get that value the summer after. Tete and Riedervold weren't playing anyway, and it seems that Kaiser perhaps has the same views as Peter Bosz. He's succeeding him, similar background of coaches around him. It's probably not going to change too much of his opinion of the other players. Traore's got left on loan, and I think we saw last season players like De Jong and Van der Beek come in, and they played exceptionally well. So I don't think there's a cause concern, like you say, Chaka. And I think the fact that they said Verheven's not for sale puts out that signal that they're happy with what they've got now. There might be another player to come in, perhaps, but the point is they're not selling players like what is suggested by the sales of Tete and others. And the fact that they've put confidence in Veltman as a right back. He says he sees himself as a right back. He's not the most attacking right back, but he's actually pretty good for the club's level, and he gets a lot of stick from fans, but maybe it's just a scapegoat. And there's players such as Sanchez, Dolberg, and Arna, they're all staying and all key to the team. But James, why do you have such confidence in Zeefalk at right back? Do you think he'll play back up to Veltman?
Well, if I can just elaborate on what you both stated about people exaggerating the players that have left, I completely agree with you both. I think people that have been banging the drum for players leaving and wanting to exaggerate things are completely forgetting that they have a manager. Ajax have a manager in charge next season with a very, very young and hungry squad of young players. They finished second behind the champions VVV Venlo with 76 points. Marcel Keizer is basically going to carry along in that vein his attitude he had last season, being fully aware of what he has at his disposal, and I can see him quietly going about his business. As regards to Zeefalk, when I saw him, I was at the game where he made his debut against Heerenveen, and what struck me was his, as I stated before, his tactical awareness. To come on a pitch and within a few minutes be aware of positional play, be aware especially of where his opponents were, the players in front of him and the wing backs trying to get him behind. I can see him pushing for a starting place, maybe not at the expense of Veltman. I think Keizer will be aware of his talents and be aware of what he can do, and he might shuffle the pack a little bit. There may well also be one or two more additions before the transfer window closes, but there's still a long way to go in the transfer window. There's many a merry-go-round still to be played out. So I was watching a video today about Jurgen Streppel from Heerenveen with the rumours of Sam Larsson. He didn't turn up for the team photo for the start of the season, and Streppel stated that they were trying to push him for any potential transfer rumours, and he stated, well, no, the transfer market is still open, and we're not the only club going through this. You know, all clubs until the window is slammed shut have to deal with the potential risk that players will leave. But I think in the case of Ajax, maybe one or two names will come in perhaps, and I can just see Keizer building on what happened last season, because I can't understate how much of an achievement it was for that young group of young Ajax to pick up 76 points and finish second behind the champions in the Europa League. With when you have teams like Maastricht and names like Fortuna Sittard and Den Bosch, these are teams that used to play at the very highest level. Okay, they're falling on hard times, but the fact that a very, very young group can top that and finish second shows what they can do.
Okay, well, there's more European qualifiers apart from Ajax. Of course, Feyenoord and Vitesse are already waiting in their respective Champions League and Europa League group stages. But teams such as PSV and Utrecht have also got to get there. And Chaka, you watched the first leg between Valletta for Malta and Utrecht, and it was a pretty poor game, wasn't it? But in a way, understandably so. There seemed to be a poor pitch. It was hot, and some players were clearly affected by the devastating news of Nouri.
Yeah, the crowd was chanting his name in the 34th minute, and it was good to see. And the pressing and sort of the organization of the defense and the high line was very good, and it showed why Erik ten Hag is such a good coach. Ayoub was getting into the right spaces. Labiad was driving the ball forward. They were trying to push fullbacks up, and it's just they were getting the right passing sequences, but the final ball was lacking. The Maken Kok, who's the new striker replacing Sebastian Haller, he was on a totally different wavelength from the rest of his team. They could not find him with any crosses because he's this tall, big striker. They could not. His movement to sort of see where the ball was coming was terrible. There would be crosses to the front post. He would be caught at the back post. and just his supporting player, Gerano Kirk, Utrecht, tried this long ball to Mark Hancock to knock down for Kirk time and time again, but Kirk's first touch on this pitch was terrible, and they couldn't really get much done. They gave away some good chances, Utrecht, and they created a few chances. They created more chances, and they failed to do anything with it. It was a game where you weren't too impressed, and the fact that Ayub, who was one of the better players on the day, is leaving, leaves them in a real situation. But you have confidence that they'll be able to make it through to the next round because they played so well. They've got such a good coach, and they've still got some players there and some training to do that. They're friendly in the middle of the games, and I have confidence that they can really get the job done at home.
If I can elaborate on what Chaka said, looking at the match tomorrow night, the thing that strikes me is not that we plug betting on our podcast, and we don't. It's just an observation I had. If you look at the odds for a draw, it's 8-1, and for Valletta to win, it's 15-1. The FC Utrecht should be far too strong for Valletta. Should be. And they will most probably win. But the home advantage that they would have had in their own stadium, they're not going to have tomorrow, because the game is going to be played in Waalwijk, which is 2 hours and 42. I think it's 2 hours on a train, and the exact mileage is 43 miles. I think so. 43 miles from Utrecht to Waalwijk, so it's not really going to feel like a home game. So I think. I don't think they're going to struggle, but the home advantage that may well see a team through in the second leg isn't going to be there tomorrow. So I hope they remain professional and realise the job needs to be done, because if they do go through, they'll face a tougher opponent. But with the qualities that Ten Hag has, and hopefully them identifying players to come in, Emmanuelson has also signed, which is someone with a lot of experience, that if they do manage to get through, that they can push on a little bit and fill the gaps of players that are leaving, like Ayub, and go on to have as good a season as they had last season.
These gaps are getting bigger though in the squad. The midfield is looking pretty bare, and they've signed some defenders and they've got new strikers in, Mackinock, Dessers. But who's going to play in that midfield now that Ayub, Amrabat and Balazit have all gone? That's a midfield trio. And they do play in a 4. They sometimes have Brahma in defensive midfield. But there's very few options there now.
Yeah, I was going to elaborate on that midfield. It's a big test on Ten Hag's coaching ability and Ten Hag's developing of players, because we all remember in his first season, the season before, Bart Ramselaar talked about not being able to play the full 90 minutes, having cramps and things like that. And then he worked with Ten Hag, and that completely changed. And he played 30 plus games, and he played 90 minutes, and he made his he was called up to the Dutch national team. Now Ten Hag has to sort of rejuvenate these youngsters like Chris David, who was a very sought after youngster at FC Twente and moved to Fulham. Fulham did not kick on there. We all remember Bilal Sheikh from FC Twente, who scored 7 goals as a 17-year-old a few years ago for FC Twente. In the season where they still had Lucas Diagnos and Jesus Corona. And then he moved to Benfica, where he played for the youth team for 2 years, and didn't really get further there. And he's been training with Utrecht ever since February, March, and they chose to sign him. He came on at the end of the game last week, and didn't have enough time to really make something of that. So. And they've also got Rico Strider, who is from Bayern Munich and played here and there under Pep Guardiola, and obviously Ten Hag took him because he knew him. He was his coach in the Bayern Munich second team, and He's a very calm player on the ball, much better than Wout Brama on the ball, and very a solid passer and very metronomic. And he's someone that had an ACL injury and missed the whole of last season, and they'll be glad to have him back. So it's just a matter of bringing players through the academy, sort of having David and Ulchik and trying to sort of make them, find their love for the game again and make them trying to be the players that they both were capable of being. Ulchik is still only 19 years old, and he's got a lot of football, and David's got a lot of football ahead of him of his career. And if he can get them back up and running, he's not going to get them back up and running against Valletta tomorrow, but at some point in the season, if he can get them back into the players that they are capable of being, then it will be quite something to watch. And it's not just the midfield; it's the midfield and the strikers, because they've lost Barazit, they've lost Haller, they've lost Zivkovic, and it's adapting to sort of a new midfield, adapting to a new striker. I know when you were watching the game last week, you could see that the team was still adapting to each other, and they had no problem moving the ball from defense to midfield. But when it came to moving the ball from defense to attack, and those moments where knowing your teammate is really, really important, that's where they struggled. And it'll be interesting to see how they play tomorrow, because they can only make so many strides in 1 week, and how it would have to, Ten Hag will have to tinker with things to really get something happening tomorrow.
Just to elaborate on what you were both saying about the midfield, one player who I think is underrated, who will play a part for FC Utrecht in the midfield this season, is the new signing Sander van der Streek.
Yeah.
This is Sander van der Streek has almost played, I think, 100 games for Cambuur Leeuwarden in 3 seasons, and has scored around about 33 goals, I think. So almost 1 in 3. I think he'll have a good season at Utrecht, and I think he'll make a positive impact. I can see him playing quite often. So Sander van der Streek is also an option for FC Utrecht in the midfield this season.
In terms of signings, Volendam's 18-year-old Joey Veerman is supposed to be going into Utrecht as Ives' replacement. He's very highly rated. And they've got a few players coming through the academy as well. There's the greatly named Odysseus Villanis, who's been playing a lot during pre-season. I know they love him in Utrecht, and he should make his breakthrough in midfield. So I think Ten Hag does have options just to see if his new attack gels. I think that's the main thing, because losing Haller is a big issue for the club, and it's whether Dessers or this Maki or not can actually score the goals that's going to come from midfield.
That's a good spot, actually. The younger players do seem to be coming through, and the player from Volendam seems a good option as well. But it's going to be a young midfield for Utrecht this season. Now, there isn't long to go before the season starts, and teams like Utrecht will be trying to get their players to gel. And it's particularly apparent in the title race. So here's a question for you three. Who do you think will win the Eredivisie this season? Very broad question, but if you could perhaps give us a quick rundown of the 3 challengers who are likely and any outsiders, and what you think the factors will be.
I watched PSV versus FC Sion the other day, and they were good. They played with much more intensity than they had. Schwab looks like he will be an integral part of this team. Isimat Marin will look to partner him till Derek Lucassen finds his feet. Also, they've also made some good signings in Lozano and Van Hinkel again on loan. So that's very interesting. And although they've lost they've lost. They're about to lose Yetro Willems, and they've lost Guardado and Moreno. It's a team where Brands hasn't made a lot of moves, but he sort of made enough moves given the talent that he has coming to the academy. And you've seen Dante Rigo and Pablo Rosario and Sam Lammers sort of step up into the first team. Rigo came on in that FC Sion game, and the first thing he did is he receives the ball, he's under pressure, turns, swivels past his players, little shake of the hips, and then just hits a perfect diagonal pass to the other flank. And he's a player that will get more game time. In the last game they played, he is a free kick specialist, and he used the ability to create a goal for Gaston Pereiro. Gaston Pereiro was the top scorer last season, but he was the top scorer last season. But you would be hard pressed to find a game where you could say, "Wow, Gaston Pereiro wowed me in this game." He's a player that has everything. He has skill. He has pace. He has this ability of awareness of where the goal is when he's in the box, and just being able to maneuver and just finish. But the thing is, Koku has complained about this time and time again. He's there. You see his magic. Then 25-30 minutes goes by, he's missing, and Koku says he needs to, take more control of games, and he's tried to play him in a more central midfield role so they could receive the ball. And they've still got Bar Ramsala, who's in his second season, who's looked to have grown. Hendricks, it was interesting to see him such a juxtaposition from Guardado, because in the preseason games, in the 2 preseason games I've seen him, he's been kicking lumps out of people, and that's something rare that you see in Dutch players. Someone that's so eager to get on the physical side of the game. His tackles have been mistimed, but he still allows PSV to set a very good tempo. And Locadio's back for a full season, and they've got a real striker problem with Lammers, Locadia, and Luke de Jong. So that is interesting, and I think they're in better shape and they're more motivated to go after the title this season.
Just while it's on topic. Go on, Chaka, finish.
Yeah, and just having the pieces they already have. They've also got Steven Bergwijn, who started the preseason with 2 goals. So I really rate them highly, and we'll get to see them early because they've got a Europa League playoff to play.
My point was about relating to what you're saying about the Schwab playing with Issa Omaha in defence, and Lucassen being gradually introduced. At a point we had the other day was about Device coming into the fold after a loan spell at Excelsior. Didn't set the world alight, but he was pretty solid for Excelsior, and he's looking to come in as 4th choice centre back. And I watched the highlights as it happens against Grasshoppers, and there were more squad players introduced, a lot of youth players. Sam Lammers had a good game, very confident finish in a 3-1 defeat, but he scored the goal. But I did think that there was an issue in the centre of PSV. Lucassen and Device, obviously new to each other, didn't convince me. Particularly Lucassen, a few stray passes. A couple of goals were perhaps down to him and Audias not quite covering the right side. And I thought Koopmans in goal was perhaps slightly at fault for all 3 goals conceded. And that's my point that I'd like to make there about how Zut, his only backup is Koopmans. And he didn't convince me in that game. They've let go of Pasveer, and Yoyus has again gone out on loan to Lodeyese. So I think PSV may be lacking a few options, a few quality options. In my opinion, more still needs to be done in the transfer market for them. But I think Koku and Balance, they're happy, which concerns me a little. I don't know what you, James and Michael, want to say about that, or if they want to give an opinion for Ajax or Feyenoord.
Just on PSV, I'd say my biggest worry for him going forward is De Jong up front. Cocu's come out and said that he's going to stay the captain. I don't think he's scored a single goal in pre-season so far. He's missed a penalty. His form still looks off from last season. If he starts the season as striker and continues as number one instead of Lammers, then I think PSV are going to have an issue. And on, the goalkeeping issues, I think Cocu came out and said, Koopman's had a terrible game. I mean, he just called him out on it. They do have Yannick Van Osch, who's been an Netherlands under-19, under-17 international. He's meant to make a big breakthrough for young PSV. Maybe he'll take the second jersey this year, but I totally agree that I think they definitely need a couple more signings. I can see Arias still going as well. So I think a few defensive recruits. I really thought they would go for St. Just at Heerenveen, but he didn't find out get him. Players like Amrabat, these are players that PSV could have looked at for their just backup options for going forward. They're putting a lot of faith in the players coming through the academy. I think Kenneth Powell, he might be, the backup for left back. Brand said at the start of the season they've not got a lot of money this season because they missed out on the Champions League. So I think they're going to rely a lot on kids, and we'll see how that goes throughout the whole campaign.
Yeah, it's weird that they have to rely on kids, because at the end of last season, when asked why he wasn't playing the kids, Philip Cocu said that this isn't a playground. And now you see sort of, Lammers, Rigo and Rosario being promoted and getting more game time in preseason. And you see Devay, who Cocu has tried to use a left back and who's a very different centre back than most young Dutch players, who will get more game time. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. But I feel that they've got this brilliant balance between young players and older players, and De Jong may be is also a problem. And I feel more people should give Lammers a chance, especially in more games next season. But I feel that PSV have something, especially with Guardado and Moreno, who sort of allowed them to coast through games last season. The team's going to have to be play more of a team, get through these rough patches of the seasons and rough patches of games more as a team, and I think that will help them a lot this season.
To continue on PSV, I think it's surprising that Cocu promoted Rigo, Lammers and Rosario. Not before time, because we've often spoken on the pod about what is perceived as lack of willingness to promote young players. I stated quite some time ago, towards the end of the season, that although it was premature, I can see Cocu, this being his last season in Eindhoven. And I saw a video today of his press conference where he pretty much stated that he's happy with how the squad is and he doesn't perceive any more new names coming in. That can also be quite worrying, because if he's in the back of his mind, if things don't go well, or he himself wants to move on, then it feels like someone gently planning a long goodbye, perhaps. In regards to the question of who may well win the Eredivisie the coming season, I think Europe is going to play a very, very big part, with all three clubs potentially having European commitments. Who deals with the midweek games and the weekend games after that in terms of fixtures and away games and things like that. I must say I've been very impressed with the buying policy of Feyenoord. I think to buy Haps and to buy St. Just, and to add even more quality to a squad which won the league last season. And Jari Schumann is also back from Willem II. There is quality in that squad. They will be able to deal with European commitments. I believe Feyenoord's squad is slightly bigger than PSV. I think that will help. And although we'll probably be asked the question again before the season actually kicks off on August the 11th, my answer to the question is that I can see Feyenoord winning the title again for the second year in a row. Is my first answer to that question.
I totally agree with that actually, because I think Feyenoord have made 5 excellent signings, and adding Amrabat, adding Dykes, adding Boetius back, keeping Vilhena, keeping Jorgensen up front. I think they're not done as well. I think what they need is a backup striker. I think Kramer will probably end up leaving, and who knows? The rumours around are Van Persie coming in. I think the rumours today were that Fenerbahce are signing So back, and that'll free up Van Persie. So if Van Persie came in and played like a quite role from last season, Feyenoord are going into the season looking hungry, young, sharp, and very strong. They've not really lost. Yeah, they've lost Karsdorp and they've lost Congolo, but I think they've replaced them well with young talent. Haps, he's maybe the only one I've got a bit of a question mark over, because I championed him at the start of last season. I thought he was excellent at the start of the season for AZ, but then he totally fell off towards the end of the season when AZ went through a rough patch. But if Van Bronckhorst can get him playing well, then that's another excellent sign. I think they go into the season as slight favourites. But I think PSV have recruited well. Van Hinkel and Lozano, I'm very excited about seeing Lozano. And Ajax, I think it's going to be difficult for them going into the season, but they've strengthened the one area that I thought was their biggest weakness from last season, which was a backup to Dolberg. And I think Huntelaar will be an excellent player for them for this campaign. I think coming off the bench, he's going to add so much experience. He's going to score. I can see him scoring 15 plus goals next season.
Yeah, I agree with these opinions. However, I'm still in the Ajax camp. I think they will continue the quality of play they had last season. It was very intense, high quality. They haven't lost a lot of players in an attacking sense. They've lost goals from Klaassen, but I think that there'll be more fluidity, perhaps, in midfield now that he's gone, and that there'll be a lot more goals as well, a lot more pressure on Dolberg and Huntelaar to produce the goods. But whether Feyenoord can keep up, because I think between those two, again, actually, it was like last season. I think Feyenoord got enough for the league. I have a question on Twitter whether they had enough for the European campaign. In my opinion, they lack that little bit of experience, just that extra play, even if it was Dirk Kuyt staying on another season, to lift them through those games in the Champions League. They're massive games, and you have to be clever against these bigger teams, the big opposition, especially in the home games. And I just think they'll be missing a little bit. They've got experienced players like Tornsteder now. They've got Jorgensen up front. They've got Jan van der Heijden, Bartiki in defence, but none of them have played the Champions League. And I just think they'll be missing that little bit there. In the league, I think they're well equipped and the squad is big enough to cope.
You said earlier on about outside the top 3. I don't think there's anybody other than them that are really going to challenge. I think AZ have got a lot of young talent, but if I was a fan of that club, I'd be a bit worried about how many players are leaving at the moment without any coming in. They seem to be putting a lot of faith in their academy, and yes, they've got 5 or 6 players that are very, very talented. Alvin Stengs, Uyen, Vindal. These players are going to come in next season, but wherever they can, take them beyond from what they did last season. I think today they said that Ben Reinstra's leaving, Elias Belhassani's leaving. They've only signed 1 or 2 players. One's a goalkeeper. So we're looking at what they do in the next couple of weeks to see what kind of season they have. The interesting thing about that is a couple of weeks ago they were linked with Maher from PSV coming back, and they said no because we have Belhassani. Now they're going to let Belhassani leave. That might open the door for him coming back, and I think that would be an excellent signing for them. The only other club is Vitesse, who I think have recruited very well. Tim Mataz coming in, Linson, Bruins, Pascal. This is Eredivisie experience, plus some of the kids from Chelsea, which is, I think, what they need going forward.
To continue on Michael's point of Feyenoord in Europe, when you look at the initial seedings for Pot 1, Pot 2, Pot 3 and 4 in the Champions League, it's quite conceivable that Feyenoord could draw a Spartak Moscow, a Basel, a Porto, that kind of group. That's also a possibility. If that was the case, then they have half a chance. If it's a group where they would face Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Tottenham and themselves, then things may be a bit more difficult. to carry on Michael's point about, I said they've invested heavily in their youth development in terms of the facility itself, and they've invested an awful lot of money. So I think in terms of the investment that was made by the club, they want to see a fruitful return on that on the pitch, and I think they're pushing to put themselves in a position where the players are brought forward to convince themselves that they made the right decision in terms to invest in a new youth facility and to put all their eggs in that basket. I've stated before that my jury personally is out as regards to John van der Brom, and I think this will be the season where I think he either throws in the towel or I think he's going to be found out. I think if he'd have won the Carver Bay Cup last season, I think it may well be a different story. But when you look back to his history as well, even in the days at Aden Den Haag, there was always rumblings behind the scenes and the pressure which he didn't appear to be able to cope with when he was in charge of Anderlecht. So, as Michael rightly points out, to state that a player is going to stay, Belistani, and then to say he's going to leave now, it seems a little bit strange. But I think I said that they're not going to have a very good season. I can't see much from outside the traditional three pushing for a title challenge or Europe. But one thing that I would state quite early on is the promoted teams in VVV Venlo and NAC Breda. I personally don't see either team having a single problem to stay up next season. I think they'll both stay up with quite some time to spare. I can't see either club being relegated straight back down to the Jupiler League this coming season.
I was thinking about that team that could challenge top three and finish fourth. And if a team like ours could finish that in fourth again, when I didn't finish last season, but they're always aiming for that position. And if they can, with their current squad this season, it would be a good achievement for Van den Brom, and he could earn some of that credibility back. But I'm a massive doubter of him, and think that I think he'll get found out, James, like you said. And if you look at the run they had to the cup final, it wasn't exactly the trickiest of cup runs. Plus the Europa League experience, they scraped through a group that included an Irish team and an Israeli team. They just about finished second, and they got smashed by Lyon in the next round. My doubts are truly in Van der Brom's hands. I just think that the club needs something fresh to take them forwards. Someone who actually I think would know what they're doing. I don't think Van der Brom. I don't think my confidence is very low in him. Shall we say? But in terms of challenges for top three, I think Vitesse are going to be having a bit of a transitional season. Vitesse will be busy with Europe, but could challenge. And Heerenveen, I think Jurgen Seppel is going to face another tough season, especially when he loses Sam Larsson. And Twente again have lost players and replaced them with young players. I think you could even see something ridiculous like a NAC Breda actually challenging up there. I think they've got the squad that's fully capable of doing that. I'm not sure about VVV. I think they could have a bit of a long season, James. But I have full confidence in Breda to push up the table.
I can understand what you're saying as regards to VVV, but I'm a big fan of Maurice Stijn, as the pod well knows. The majority of that squad that won the Jupiler League has stayed together. Home advantage for Venlo is going to be something very, very important. I can't see them pushing for Europe or anything, but I think in the case of both Venlo and Breda, I think they won't have any problem staying up. I think in the case of Venlo with Vitor van Krooij, this is the player that scored 13 goals last season and 8 assists. I think he's going to continue to enhance his reputation. And I think with a well-grounded manager that they have, who in my opinion is extremely underrated, I think they could possibly push for top 10 perhaps.
Okay, well, our debate of the Eredivisie title races will continue for a long while to come, I'm sure, before the season starts. I think we should make a final point about how the Netherlands women's side is doing in the Euros at the moment. And Michael, did you catch the first game?
Yeah, I saw some of it. I think they played very well. I think they should have been ahead in the first couple of minutes, and then I think they dominated basically the whole game. They got some good players going forward. In my team as the Mertens, they definitely deserve to win that game, and I can see them having a good tournament and showing the men how it's done really at the moment. They got home advantage, and Norway are a good side. They got good pedigree in the women's game, and it's an excellent win to get off to a great start. And I really hope that they can make the knockout rounds, reach the stages of the tournament, and do the country proud.
Do they have a realistic chance of winning that though?
I think with home advantage, they definitely have a chance. I mean, their next game is against Denmark, and a local derby against Belgium as well. I think I remember seeing on FIFA Football on the program about a special coverage on before the tournament about different countries competing, and when they had the Netherlands on, they were extremely motivated. And I think the Dutch women, as Michael says, showing the men how it's done. I think there's more transparency and there's more of a coherent approach in the women's game at the moment than the men's game, and I think that says something. They definitely have a chance playing at home, but then you've got the nations, the usual suspects, France, Germany, perhaps even England or Spain. So, but I would say they definitely have a chance. Yes.
Dit is Bergkamp! Dit is Bergkamp! Persie, ja! 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 Daar is hij! Ja! Ja! Daar is Klaassen, goal!